What burns faster? A $200 million tanker or a lie told at 3 a.m.? The night shift at Primorsk, Russia's Baltic oil hub, should have been routine. Floodlights washed steel piers. 2 Aframax tankers from the Shadow Fleet took on cargo. Pumps hummed. Gauges blinked green. The flow that funds a war carried on while most of Europe slept. Hundreds of kilometers to the south, radar operators saw something else. Dozens of faint contacts spreading across a 1,000-kilometer front. Small radar cross-sections. Erratic trajectories. 70-plus returns, shallow and scattered. The picture escalated to the Leningrad Oblast Air Defense Command. A 91 N6E Big Bird confirmed it. Sirens finally followed data. Men in bunkers read their scopes, and the night tightened. 70 blips on scope. Which one do you shoot first? On paper, Russia's Baltic defenses are thick. S-400 systems cover high and medium altitudes. Pantsir S, 1 batteries pair short-range missiles with twin 30mm cannons designed to chew up low flyers. The network is meant to sense, assign, and destroy fast. But that network is optimized for certain profiles. High-speed missiles, aircraft punching through, not dozens of low, noisy contacts that look important enough to demand attention. Ukraine's planners exploited that logic. Their swarm split into roles. 35 AQ-400 Scythe drones acted as visible bait, cheap and disposable. Another 40 frames added clutter across Leningrad Oblast. At the center were 15 modified UJ-26 Bober ER drones with extra fuel and 40-kilogram warheads. The craft built to go the distance. Banshee 7 electronic warfare escorts carried jamming pods, not explosives, to hide and protect the real hitters. They lifted from multiple launch sites at midnight. Radio silence reigned. Preloaded terrain-following maps guided them low along rivers and tree lines. Once inside Russian airspace, the choreography began. If 7 drones slipped through a billion-dollar shield, Big Bird tracked the biggest cluster, and the S-400S fired 48 N6 interceptors that rose into a sky full of cheap plywood and foam. The most alarming returns soaked up the most missiles. That was the point. In other sectors, Panzer and Buk units engaged dozens of tracks. In one exchange near Volosovsky, a Panzer locked clean on a Bober, only to have a nearby Banshee 7 jam its tracking. The operator's screen went white. The lock failed. Cannon fire stitched the sky where the drone had been. The Bober kept going. By dawn, Russian defenses had shot down 33 drones. Crucially, 7 Bober ERS remained on course. They carried the mission's decisive payloads. 1,000 kilometers, 3,000 kilograms of explosives. Who sleeps tonight? At 4:45 a.m., Primorsk's own Pantsir battery detected 7 low, fast returns too late for perfect engagement. Interceptors and cannons burned fuel and rounds. The drones split at the coast. 3 pushed for the pumping station. 4 closed on tankers at the piers. 1 Bober was intercepted. 2 struck the pumping station. The first detonated inside the control building with a thermobaric burst that blew out walls and switchgear. The second ripped through the main pipeline manifold, shearing steel and sending products spraying. The 4 strike drones hit ships. 2 slammed into 1 Aframax, beneath the bridge and into a cargo tank, knocking out electronics and igniting crude. 2 more impacted a second tanker, 1 in the engine room, 1 at the loading manifolds. Explosions didn't run on politics. They ran on fuel. 40 seconds after the first hit, a second explosion rolled through the pumping station compound. Emergency shutdown commands could not cross damaged circuits. Hoses and loading arms ruptured. Fuel flooded the piers. Flames found fuel and grew. By dawn, Primorsk burned across the dock face. 2 large tankers burned at their moorings. The pumping station lay gutted. The control center was offline. The port, which moves roughly a fifth of Russia's seaborne crude exports, lay crippled. They fired 48 missiles at plywood, so why were the tankers still burning? Hours later, the Russian Ministry of Defense claimed 221 Ukrainian drones shot down nationwide, that every attack had been repelled. Satellite imagery told a different story. Heat plumes, wreckage on the piers, 2 crippled tankers, all visible from orbit. Narratives can be spun. Satellites and burned metal do not lie. The economic impact was immediate. Aframax lifts are often in the 700,000 barrel range. Primorsk's daily throughput nears 1 million barrels. An operational pause translates into $70 to $80 million a day in lost revenue, plus demurrage, diversion costs, insurance spikes, and infrastructure repair bills that quickly climb into the billions. Flights were diverted from Pulkovo Airport. Air traffic controllers scrambled as debris and intercepts crowded regional scopes. Insurance desks and trading rooms lit up from Tallinn to Dubai. If your economy depends on 2 ships at one pier, how many seconds can you afford to be blind? Technically, the operation solved 3 hard problems. 1. Range the ER Bobers, with extra fuel and software tweaks, bridge the 1,000-kilometer one-way gap. 2. Saturation. A flood of cheap decoys forced Russian systems to spend expensive interceptors on false targets. 3. Masking. Banshee. 7 jammers degraded radar locks at the critical moment, opening windows for strike drones. Recovered wreckage confirmed the design. Drone fragments near Usmino and Skovskoye contained navigation modules preloaded with false route instructions. Doglegs and altitude profiles meant to attract fire and waste response time. This was a crafted deception, not improvisation. What costs more, an S-400 interceptor, or a mistake you can see from space? Strategically, the raid exposed a key vulnerability. Leningrad Oblast hosts the 6th Combined Arms Army, naval forces, coastal artillery, and layered air defenses. Radars follow the curve of the Earth. Low flyers can vanish until the last minute. Even advanced S-400 rings have physics limits when threats hug the surface and cross-layered, confusing tracks. Kronstadt, the Luga line batteries, and S-400 arrays are formidable against conventional threats. They are less ready for a planned drone saturation that forces operators to choose which blips to kill and which to let live. Can decoys made of wood set a petrostate on fire? Watch the math. The strike was a blunt, clever lesson. You don't need the most expensive weapon to inflict strategic damage. You need the right match of tools, timing, and deception. Plywood and cheap airframes absorbed interceptors. Electronic warfare erased locks. Extended range strike drones carried the prize. Repairs will take weeks. Manifolds, control centers, and piers are not rebuilt overnight. Investigations will sap staff hours. Markets will hedge. Ship owners will rethink schedules. Defenders will change tactics. Reposition radars. Add low-altitude coverage. Integrate electronic warfare countermeasures. And pre-stage mobile reserves. If this was only a rehearsal, what happens when they stop bringing decoys? For Kyiv, the operation proved asymmetric effects at distance are possible and painful, but success needs resources, launch sites, ER modifications, escorts, and planning. Losses were accepted as part of the cost. The strike shifts the calculus. It urges defenders to adapt and attackers to innovate further. For Moscow, the attack punctures a confidence narrative. You can announce intercepts by the 100, but plumes of smoke and crippled tankers are hard to spin away. The Kremlin must now balance rhetoric with repair, and deterrent claims with visible gaps. When the radar goes white for 3 seconds, is that the moment a nation loses $80 million a day? Dawn over Primorsk was a photograph of modern war. Black water reflecting orange flame, cranes cut against smoke, crews on deck fighting to keep ships afloat, fireboats carving through heat. Drone fragments lay along approach roads and farmland, physical proof of a new operational technique. The strategic picture sharpened fast. Primorsk concentrates value. Damage there ripples across budgets, trade, and the credibility of supposedly airtight defenses. If one swarm can get through, others will try. Defenders will adapt. Attackers will tune. The contested space becomes a test bed for new doctrine. 7 drones. 2 tankers crippled. 1 export hub on fire. The math is simple. The implications aren't. 1,000 kilometers used to be safety. Now it's a flight plan. Layered air defenses used to be a stopper. Now they can be walked through with noise, patience, and the right jammers. A tanker used to be a sea target. Now a pier can burn just as hot. Primorsk will rebuild. Ships will sail again. Insurance will be paid, but the cost of protection just rose. The margin for error just fell. Somewhere in command centers and shipyards, people will make choices they didn't consider before. Routes will shift. Radars will be repositioned. Software will be patched. And the next operation, by either side, will be smarter. If you heard the first explosion at 4:45 a.m., how many backups already failed? That night was proof. War doesn't always require the most expensive toys. It rewards the clever choreography of cheap parts, human predictable responses, and electronic noise. The port is a hard lesson that the world will remember. Because burned infrastructure leaves facts that spin cannot erase. The heat, the smoke, the tiny bits of twisted metal in frozen fields, they will stay on the record. And for planners on both sides, the question after a night like that is no longer whether the drone era matters. It's how to live with it